Hi everyone, in this video we'll look at what is socket programming. Socket programming is a method of connecting two different nodes over an internet whenever there is an internet connection is actually established between them. Meaning, let's say suppose you have a computer, let's call it a C1. You have another computer, let's call it a C2, or it can be anything you wanted, like for example a phone or and even an Arduino board or something like that. Now what we wanted to do was we wanted to actually establish a connection between these two people, and then we want to send the messages or receive messages or send some actions, and based on that action it will be performing an action in C2, like that you can do it, right? So doing all this process together, or the way or the process which is actually helping us to do all of them is actually called as something called socket programming. So it comes, the name actually comes because to do all these performances we need two endpoints. First of all, over here is one endpoint and there is over here is another endpoint. So these we call it as the sockets. So socket 1 and socket 2. So generally what is a socket means, it is an endpoint in each node that we have, and socket programming means we usually connect these two sockets only, or via these sockets only we interact with the systems that what we wanted. Okay, that's it. So that's all it's called as a socket programming. Now here what we have here is we can look at the state diagram of this particular programming. Remember, you see that there is two devices involved in it, right? So one we can call it as a server. Let's call this person as a server, for example, and another one we call it as a client. Now server and clients are having some specific actions to do, right? Now what is a server can do? In fact, in both the ends, as I said, I need a socket to be there. So we need to have a socket in both sides. So let's call it as simply as function called socket. So socket, and after which what we wanted in the server we actually have to bind any port that we have to actually establish a connection. Now in that particular port, whatever we have established a connection, we can let the client to connect in that, right? So we call it as a connection action or connection program. Okay. Now we try to establish a connection once after we bind it. Now after binding, we will start listening to the client, whoever is actually trying to come and actually communicate with that particular server. We will open that port and then we will listen to that particular port. Now before even actually you send any messages from the client, we'll have to connect this, as I said. Now what we do is we will do the connection after just binding it, and before the port listens to the client, we will try connecting it. Once the connection has been established, what we will do is we will accept that anything which is sent by the client. Okay, that's what we do. Once that has been done, then once after the acceptance, we will proceed forward with the actions that we wanted to do once we accept that restrictions, once we accept that request. Now over here only the read access or write actions, all of them happens. So over here as well, there is again read and write access happens over there. Okay. Now the client sends, actually after the connection, as I said, this action happens for the client, and it can write something and the server can read it, and the server can after reading it, it can write something and the client can read that particular action and it can write back to the client. Okay, fine. Once every action overs, we can close the sockets in both ends. So here is the close function which we can act on the server, and here another close function which we can do it on the client as well, and that will terminate the complete connection itself. Okay, that's how it works. So what is a socket programming? Again, it is simply a process in which that we connect two different nodes in a manner that it can be either computer or it can be phone or anything with the internet connection. That's all its node is. And if it is part of the two nodes, then one of them will assign it as a server, the other one will assign it as a client. So server is having the left side whatever I have written, these are the actions are there for the server, and the right side whatever I have here is these are the actions are there for the client. Okay, so client is just bare minimum that it just actually have like a socket already, and it try to connect whatever happens, whatever is there the server, and then it read or access read or write based on the response that we received from the server. Similarly, so server has once the binding is done, meaning once the port has been opened for a connection, it expects something to be come from the client, and based on whatever the client is saying, it actually sends a response or do some actions on the server, etc. Okay, that's how it works. Once everything gets over, once the transactions or once the communications get over, we do close the socket, or we do close the communication. Okay, and hence the socket has been actually terminated. All right. Okay, so that's the introduction about the socket programming. In the next lecture, what I will do is, in the next video, we'll talk about how do I actually create sockets in one end. Okay, as I said, creation is same for both server and client. So we'll do go ahead and then open our VS Code and try to create a socket. Right. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.